And we're back with another episode of Before You Buy, that show where we give you some straight up gameplay and some of my thoughts on the latest games releasing. As usual, it's me, Jake Baldino, back in the driver's seat, and today we're talking about Assassin's Creed Origins. It's a pretty ambitious Assassin's Creed game, simply because of the fact that the series took a year off to kind of rework some things. We did get that movie, but we don't really have to talk about that. But in the series refocusing, it's a much more fun, streamlined experience with pretty strong foundations that kind of lose a bit of its identity in the process. I still think fans will enjoy it a lot, but I also think people who don't like Assassin's Creed aren't going to be won over this time. But it's set roughly 40 years BC, and the series shifts its eyes to Egypt and the birth of the Assassin's Brotherhood. You play as this guy Bayek. He's one of the last of the Magi, this ancient order of Pharaoh's bodyguards. But at the start of the game, he gets screwed over and he sets out on a quest for vengeance and falls into this whole rabbit hole conspiracy across this North African region. And right off the bat, Bayek is a pretty interesting enough character. He's charismatic, but he's not an Ezio ripoff, and he can be serious and deadly, but not stoic and boring like some of the other characters we've seen. He's plagued by this quest for vengeance, but he doesn't mind stopping and drinking with a friend or like throwing a ball to a kid and just kind of being an all-around good dude. Save for a few personality flaws that I won't get into, but he's got some anger issues. But the biggest thing to get used to is how differently this feels as an Assassin's Creed game. It's way more structured like an RPG. But first things first, you automatically can run full speed all the time without holding a button. That doesn't sound like a big deal, but to Assassin's Creed fans, this gives the game a decidedly different kind of feel. Bayek is really fast. Sometimes he kind of feels super fast. And just that's generally the whole pace and movement of the game, whether you're riding on a camel or riding on a little rowboat that goes as fast as a speedboat. It's just a fast-paced game, probably because the game world is so big. But once again, you move around, you have a crouch button, and stealth is still disappointingly simple, I'll say, with the AI that is slightly less forgiving now, a little smarter, but still mostly dumb. It's funny with the open world and the way the stealth encounters work, it actually feels a bit like Metal Gear Solid 5, especially with how guards are alerted to you and you get a brief moment of slow motion to help yourself. It's still all about hiding in bushes and whistling and stealth killing dudes pretty easily. Then there's also the poison and sleeping darts and other tools of the trade that kind of give you some options, but it still leaves a lot to be desired for me. On the bright side though, it is one of the best and most smooth controlling Assassin's Creed games by a long shot. Like most of the time the character always goes where I need him to go, not any like accidental climbing on a weird thing or falling and tripping. It plays very well, and everything about the game is really streamlined and slick, whether you like that or not. I know sometimes that's a detriment, and here I just don't totally know how I feel. But the combat is really the biggest change. It gets some much needed complications. It's now a more involved affair where you actually have to pay attention. This is one of the biggest changes. Now it goes down way more like Zelda. Like you lock on, you square up, and then you can hold your shield up, you can dodge, you can do a light or heavy attack with the triggers, and you can also parry once you unlock that. And like the general movement, the combat is really fast. You can really strafe around characters very, very quickly. I'll say as a fan, it feels okay. It's more engaging and actually feels like a fair bit of challenge sometimes, which is good, but it all just feels a bit messy, A charged finisher is really satisfying to pull off, but the combat feels a bit rough around the edges. It's like almost there. It certainly gets better at higher levels once you unlock more abilities and tricks from the skill trees, but I will give it points for weapon variety and how easily you can swap with the D-pad. Like a spear handles way differently than a short sword, and it's clear and apparent where the uses actually lie. And plus, ranged attacks are pretty seamlessly integrated. It's a big part of the whole combat and whole loop. I really appreciate how easy it is to just pop a headshot with a bow and then move in for the kill with like an axe. But what you're actually doing most of the time is basically the usual open world shit. The map is less cluttered and more focused than previous games, but there's still tons of stuff to do, including the whole base takeover thing. Sneaking up on bases, scouting out the patrols with your eagle from the sky, then going in and stealth killing all the dudes from the bushes, and then even breaking out wolves and animals from cages to fight the soldiers and kind of create chaos. If that sounds like Far Cry, it feels like that stuff more than ever. Now, I know Ubisoft games essentially take from one another all this open world stuff and kind of bounce back and forth between Assassin's Creed, Watch Dogs, and Far Cry, but here it feels drastically less Assassin's Creed and much more like Far Cry or insert AAA open world game. But on the bright side, quests are structured similar to modern Western action-y RPG stuffs like The Witcher or even Horizon Zero Dawn, and that's where it works. Now, I say open world shit, but I always say this. Some folks love a map that's like filled with stuff to do and just grind through over and over again, and others find it meaningless. It's all a matter of taste. What I can say to Origins' favor is that it's filled with these side quests that most of the time actually feel pretty substantial. You're talking to people, investigating stuff, stuff, helping a farmer carry crops, collecting stuff, assassinating certain tax collectors. It all feels pretty well done. There's some good writing, and while it doesn't come too close to the stuff like the Bloody Baron quest from The Witcher 3, they definitely took notes. They definitely played The Witcher, and it helps the grind feel less monotonous as quests are actually pretty multi-layered and actually feel a step above just cookie-cutter repetition. So I gotta give him huge points for that. And now I have dropped the word grind, but it's a fairly well-constructed grind. You level up Bayek with a decent skill tree, getting stronger and getting into areas where you previously got crushed. And there's a good bit of progression because you can go anywhere you want in the game, but if you go into certain later game areas, you're just gonna get dominated. I also really love hunting animals to like get more gear to craft better armor. It's handled slightly differently than your average game here, like on the menu, and I think it's smartly done because it hooked me. I always wanted to just kill one more hippo or buzzard or tiger to get a better pouch or something. There's also colored gear and loot you collect based on levels of rarity, which going into I thought was very like, hey, this is the thing now, all games do this. But it didn't bother me as much as I thought it would, just because its applications actually make sense. It's all paced fairly well and incentivizes you to explore a pretty badass open world. I'm not gonna lie, this is absolutely the most impressive and ambitious aspect of AC Origins. The scope and variety here is like actually freaking astounding. I hate to sound dramatic, but it's pretty good. You get dust storms in a desert riddled with poor villages and pyramids, and it's a total stark contrast to the over-the-top Greco-Roman lushness of like Alexandria. It's all really lovingly done, and like every single Assassin's Creed game before it, I think it's kind of the star of the show. But Origins really kills it because there's so much variety to it all. Even if the game isn't perfect, it's really fun to explore thanks to just that sheer variety, the feeling of it actually being lived in, the huge amount of different cultures and people doing their own thing and their own little systems, and then dynamic weird stuff that happens in the world. I got to see a bunch of angry hippos just kill a whole fishing village, and it was funny. Not to mention, without spoiling anything, I think the Out of Animus stuff here is handled very well. It's immediately different and interesting, but it also understands that you'll want to get back in the game, so it doesn't really outstay its welcome at all. I played on an Xbox One S, and the game looks pretty damn good. Impressive draw distances, bright colors, tons of foliage, and all sorts of effects going on. I honestly did not expect the game to look this good. But however, the frame rate can really be an issue. It's not broken to the point of dropping to single digits and chugging, but it has a tendency to feel well below 30 during cutscenes and in populated areas, and especially when you're fighting a few dudes at once. This makes the combat feel even more messy like I was talking about before. And between this and a few bugs here and there, it'd probably make it my biggest complaint of the game. Thankfully, the bugs aren't as bad as AC Unity, and I'm also just having tons of fun with the core game, and with tons to do, and with a somewhat satisfying story, with it not all just kind of feeling like filler. As a longtime fan, I do really honestly miss some of the original Assassin's Creed feel sacrificed to kind of make this game more RPG style. There are crowds, but I can't hide or blend in with them really. I know it sounds like a minor stupid thing, but it's a good example of how Assassin's Creed is very different now, almost kind of losing its identity to become more of a standard game. It's still really fun, thank God, but it's worth pointing out. Otherwise, I do think you should check the game out. If you're a fan of the series, you should absolutely go for it. It's very different, but if you are a fan of the series and have played these games obsessively, it still manages to feel like some comfort food. But if you've been negative on Assassin's Creed for a few years, this is not going to change your mind at all. But me personally, I really like it. But that's how Before You Buy works. You know how it goes. I give you some pros, some cons, and my personal opinion, and now I want to hear yours down in the comments. Let's talk about this. The game is releasing on Friday. I got early access to it, but I want to know what you guys are thinking, looking at gameplay and reading reviews and stuff. How you feeling on this? And now, if you're coming back after playing the game, maybe it's a few days after this video's out, what are you thinking? If you are someone who was burned on the series and you're coming back, I want to know what you think. But also, if you're a fan, if you've been a longtime fan, I want to know how you're feeling on some of the stuff they dropped in here. Let's talk about anything Assassin's Creed Origins down in the comments. I'll be down there talking to you guys as much as I can, but if you have anything else for me at all, you know where to find me, as always, at Jake Baldino on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. But thank you guys so much for coming around. Clicking the like button does help us out a ton. We really appreciate it. But if you are new, you should subscribe because we put out stuff like this all the time, every single day. So, as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.